Good morning, everyone. My camera's deciding to have trouble focusing on me. Wow. There we go. Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday morning. Welcome to my stream, everyone. Whether you are joining me from Twitch, YouTube, or brand new, coming to you live from TikTok. I am happy to have everyone joining me from wherever you decide to stream your content this morning. Today we will be going into part 7 of my ongoing series reviewing and reading through the Keepers of the Elven-Rings book. So for those of you who are not aware, there is something called the Lord of the Rings Roleplaying for 5e. It is a subsystem of the Dungeons and Dragons game made for players to play in Middle-earth, using a lot of the same rules that you would apply from Dungeons and Dragons. This is by Free League Publishing. Originally, it had been done by Cubicle 7 as something called Adventures in Middle-earth, but then Cubicle 7 lost the rights and Free League Publishing was granted those rights. So now we have Lord of the Rings Role-Playing for 5e, or Lord of the Rings 5e, as I like to call it. So for those of you who are maybe not aware of this system, I do stream content related to going through this system, whether it's about the core rules, how you play the system, or reviewing monsters or campaigns and traps and different encounters outlined through these books, or as I'm doing today, going through the actual physical books, the physical content that is available to us through Free League Publishing. So right now we are working on something called Keepers of the Elven-Rings. So Keepers of the Elven-Rings is the latest release from Free League Publishing for Lord of the Rings 5e. And Keepers of the Elven-Rings goes through Lothlorien, Lindon, and Rivendell. It delves into these 3 areas, these elven realms, where the Rings of Power once thrived, maybe in the past or in the present day. So this is pretty freshly released. Probably 3 or 4 weeks ago is when they first announced it. It is available right now for pre-order on Free League Publishing's website. If you are interested in picking up a pre-order of it, you do get access, obviously, to the physical copy of the book when it is released. But you get access right away to an early access version of the book through PDF, and that's what we're going to be going through today. So I want to say welcome to everyone who's joining me today as we go through this. In some previous streams, so you might notice this is part 7. I have 6 other streams going through the content of this book. In the first stream, we went through the appendices of this book, which gives us a brand new calling called Elf Lords. Callings are like your classes in D&D 5e. And Elf Lords are meant to be kind of a multi-class addition to your existing class. So it allows you to be a more powerful character and reach level 20 with that Elf Lord calling. We also went through 2 new cultures, or subcultures, I should say, Wood Elves and High Elves, that are available in the appendices of this Keepers of the Elven-Rings supplement. So cultures are like your races or your species from D&D 5e. And we did have the Elves of Lindon from the core rule supplement, but these are some new subcultures for elves, if you're interested in shaking things up with your elves a bit. Took us a couple streams, but we did go through the locations of Lindon, Lothlorien, and Rivendell, diving into the meat and potatoes of the history of them, the layout of them, a little bit of the characters that you might be able to encounter there, some story beats, that kind of thing. And now we are on Chapter 2, The Days Darken. This chapter is dedicated to the lore master. So this, in Lord of the Rings 5e, your dungeon master is called a lore master. And The Days Darken has 3 plots of Sauron. These plots are how he is trying to undermine and work against the elves of Middle-earth. We did take 2 streams to cover our last chapter, Perils of the Last Road, in which Sauron was trying to disrupt elves as they were making their journey to the utmost west, employing a use of a variety of agents from ghosty elf spirits to orcs, and even some humanoids. So we did cover that in our last 2 streams here. And now we're going to be moving on to the second of 3 plots of Sauron to disrupt the elves of Middle-earth. And this one is called Memories of Ancient Wounds. Let's take a deep dive into this as we get started this morning. All right. So you should now be able to see on my screen a preview of the PDF that we're working on. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Free League Publishing, they have some beautiful artwork in their books. It really invokes a sense of Middle-earth as you are reading through it, as you are appreciating the artwork available in it. These are our love projects by the Free League Publishing's team, and everyone appreciates the work that they do, for sure. Memories of Ancient Wounds. Evil had been seen and heard there. Sorrow had been known. The elves feared and distrusted the world outside. Wolves were howling on the wood's borders. Mortals look with envy at the elves and their eternal youth, yet they rarely comprehend that the gift of immortality is, in many ways, a heavy burden. While death offers mortals peace and forgetfulness, from the many sorrows of life, the firstborn know no such respite. They may lose their bodies, but their souls remain unchanged. In the halls of awaiting, they may find healing for their suffering, but not oblivion. The memories of their woes and wounds linger with them forever, until the end of time, and possibly beyond. For this reason, elves fear suffering more than mortals do, as each new misery adds to the weight of past grievances. Sauron is well aware of this vulnerability and is determined to exploit it, aiming to manipulate and trap the elves of Rivendell. Imladris, like a thorn in the side of the Dark Lord, it has stood for millennia in the shadow of the misty mountains, defying the armies of Angmar and countless orc chieftains. Within its borders shines a light of wisdom and hope that the shadow cannot extinguish. It is here, the Lord of the Rings suspects, that one of the 3 rings is kept. He suspects this, but does not know for certain, for the elves of Rivendell are cautious, and their master, Elrond Half-Elven, never leaves the valley. But what if he could be lured outside his fortress, his hand forced into action? What if he momentarily abandoned his wisdom and rode forth with strength to save what is most dear to him? If such a scenario could be achieved, the Dark Lord would discover whether he is indeed one of the ring bearers, and who knows, perhaps his servants could even manage to recover one of the remaining 3. Alright, now we're going to jump into the Torment of Celebrain. More than 400 years ago, Celebrain, the daughter of Galadriel and Celeborn of Lothlorien, and wife of Elrond Half-Elven, was waylaid by orcs from Moria while crossing the Redhorn Pass and captured. Her sons, Eladane and Elrohir, rode to her rescue and found her, but not before she had suffered torment at the hands of the orcs. While Elrond's healing arts restored her body, they could do nothing to mend her wounded spirit. The following year, Celebrain sought the Grey Havens and crossed the sea. The loss of Celebrain is deeply felt by all who knew and wished to protect her, but none more so than her twin sons, Eladane and Elrohir. They were the ones who rescued her from the enemy and witnessed her wounds while still fresh. This memory burns within them like a fierce fire, fueling unprecedented hatred for orcs and all the servants of the shadow among the elves of this age. These tragic events have made Elrond and his sons fiercely protective of Arwen, who always travels to Lothlorien under special escort. The mere thought of her suffering the same fate as her mother frightens them to the point of clouding their judgment. This vulnerability is one that Sauron plans to exploit. All right, so now we're going to jump into the Revenge of the Weasel Lady. So this is one of the characters or enemies introduced to us in Lord of the Rings role-playing system. It is not, from everything that I've read, a existing factual character in the Tolkien universe. It is someone who is created specifically for the play that we are making in Lord of the Rings 5e. But I think that you guys will find that you don't mind so much some of the created characters in Lord of the Rings 5e, because some of these have a lot of great role-play aspects to them, and a lot of stuff that contributes to the story and makes your player heroes feel like they are involved in the greater story of Middle-earth, involved in some of the plots of Sauron and working against him, so that eventually, years later, the Fellowship of the Ring can succeed in their quest. The Revenge of the Weasel Lady. Cothlin is a spirit of deception who has dwelt in Middle-earth since its creation. She long served Morgoth, and after his defeat, she found a new master in Sauron. 1,600 years ago, during the wars between Arnor and Angmar, Cothlin acted as a spy for the Witch King, inflicting great suffering on the elves of Rivendell, until she was ensnared and slain by 3 heroes. Eladane drove an arrow through her leg, Elrohir pierced her arm with his spear, and their companion Glinel stabbed her heart with a blade forged by Damron, the smith, for her destruction. Cothlin's material form perished, but her disembodied spirit endured. After long centuries, Sauron found her again and clothed her in a new form, offering a chance to exact revenge on the hated elves of Imladris. The weasel spirit plans to stalk, deceive, and trap them, killing a few to wound many. What better target to satisfy her wrath than harming the Even Star, sister to Eladane and Elrohir, the the beautiful and beloved embodiment of Luthien from the elder days, who shines in the twilight of her kin. Cothlin is determined to take her revenge fully and revel in it. Elf wardens and fell creatures. Cothlin is powerful and has many weapons in her arsenal and a powerful ally, Dagur, the Shadow of Death. Between the Weasel Spirit and her revenge stand once again Eladane and Elrohir, Damron the Smith and their friend Glinel, and the player heroes, of course. So this is the art for Cothlin, the Weasel Spirit. And just like all the artwork in this book, it is beautiful. It is completely a masterpiece of work. You guys, if you don't pick up these books for the storyline, if you don't pick them up for the lore, pick it up for the artwork, because there is some beautiful artwork in these books. Cothlin the Weasel Spirit. Cothlin is not confined to the single material form. She is a master of shapes and hues with a particular affinity for red. She can assume the form of any beast, man, or elf she has encountered. When she doesn't need a disguise, she typically takes the shape of a red-coated weasel the size of a wolf, or the form of an elf woman with long red hair. The Weasel Spirit is as ancient as she is devious, a true master of deception. She can pose as a maiden in distress or a curious cat, luring her targets close before striking suddenly at their throats. She knows no shame or remorse, and her dedication to Sauron is only tempered by her insatiable thirst for vengeance and her considerable pride. She favors manipulation over brute force, often engaging her foes in conversation to divide them or sway them from their goals. A consummate liar, she has no regard for promises and willingly enters into binding pacts without any intention of honoring her side of any agreement. When violence is necessary, she sends orcs, trolls, or wild beasts against her foes to distract them and make them easier targets for her poisoned arrows or sneak attacks. So already we kind of get a sense that she is a manipulative, conniving person. I really like that it tells us that she enters willingly into binding pacts. It gives us an opportunity, if we are playing out this character with our player heroes, to make all those promises, say, on my honor, on what's left of my spirit, on the Valar, make all these big promises, these big binding pacts, and then just completely betray the trust of the heroes. Because let's be honest, half the time your player heroes are going to take her at her word, even though they know she's an evil person. So she could, if she's in a bind, make that promise and get back to a place where she has the upper hand before betraying the players. Cothlin's primary weakness is her thirst for vengeance. Just as she plans to lure Elrond by threatening or capturing his children, she can also be baited into a trap by offering her a chance to confront those who caused her defeat: Eladane, Elrohir, Damron, or Glinel. Another vulnerability is her pride. She tends to overestimate her capabilities, and if she believes she can win, she never turns down a challenge, even though she does everything she can to cheat. So, immortal spirit. As an immortal spirit, Cothlin cannot be truly killed. If she is slain by conventional means, her body perishes, but her spirit endures, allowing necromancy to enable her to inhabit another body. However, if she is slain with the black dagger, Methacharn, her exile from the world of the living is extended for at least 1,000 years. Having encountered a similar dagger before, the mere sight of Methacharn is enough to make her flee in terror. So Methacharn is that dagger. For those of you who have seen my previous streams, Methacharn is the dagger that the elven smith from Rivendell forged, particularly to defeat Cauthlan. And it was wielded by not only Elrond's twin sons, but their ally to defeat her once before. Thank you so much for the follow, SFB4252. I appreciate it. All right. So let's go into her stat block here. We've got a CR8 stat block for her. So she is a medium-sized fey creature, shape changer. We have, let's see, her lowest score is wisdom, but it is by no means her dump stat. She's got a 14 in wisdom. We've got a 16 in strength and constitution. For intelligence, we've got 17. Charisma is 18, and then dexterity is her highest stat with a 21. She's actually got a decent AC with an AC of 19 and 97 hit points with a speed of 50 feet, which is quite speedy. Let's see, for skills we have Deception with a plus 12, Insight with a plus 6, Perception at plus 10, Riddle for plus 7, and Stealth for plus 9. So for those of you hearing the word riddle and saying that's not a D&D skill, the Lord of the Rings 5e content actually introduces to us 4 new skills. It takes away a couple skills, but adds a few skills. These are some wisdom and intelligence-based skills. So we've got old lore, riddle, we've got travel, and hunting. I think that's all of them. There might be one more that I'm missing off the top of my head. But riddle is one of these new skills available to us. And it is a intelligence-based skill. For damage immunity, she is immune to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical weapons. And condition immunity, she's immune to charmed and exhaustion. She's got true sight out to 120 feet and a passive perception of 20. She speaks Black Speech, Sindarin, and Western. Western being the equivalent of Common in Middle-earth. All right, so let's get into some of her features. Let's see. Immortal Spirit. If Cauthlan dies, she gains a new body in 1d10 days and regains all her hit points, unless she is killed with Methacharn. Shape Changer. Cauthlan can use her action to polymorph into a small or medium humanoid or a tiny, small, or medium four-legged beast. Her statistics other than her size are the same in each form. Any equipment she is wearing or carrying isn't transformed. And then once per turn, she has Sneak Attack. Cauthlan deals an extra 3d6 damage when she hits a target with a weapon attack and has advantage on the roll, or when the target is within 5 feet of an ally of Cauthlan that isn't incapacitated, or Cauthlan doesn't have disadvantage on the attack roll. All right, so going into her actions. And by the way, guys, if you are enjoying this content, please like, subscribe, follow, share. I appreciate any support to help me continue to stream to you guys. All Alright, so multi-attack. In beast form, Cothlin makes 2 rend attacks. In human form, she makes 2 attacks. In any form, she can use her spells of deception in place of 1 attack. So rend. This is the beast form only attack. So as a melee attack with a reach of 5 feet, she's got a +7 to hit. On a hit, she does 2d6 plus 3 slashing damage, and if the target is medium or smaller, it must succeed on a DC 15 strength save or be knocked prone. So, in beast form, she knocks you prone and then she makes that attack at advantage and gets her sneak attack off. Alright, let's see. In human form, she has a great bow and a great spear. So, great bow being her ranged attack. Against one target, a +9 to hit, with a short range of 150 feet, long range of 600 feet, which is huge. On a hit, she does 1d8 plus 5 piercing damage, plus 1d8 poison damage. And then her great spear is her melee hit, is actually got a reach of 10 feet as a pole arm. She's got +7 to hit on that for a hit of 1d10 plus 3 piercing, plus 1d8 poison damage. Invisibility. Cothlin turns invisible until she attacks or casts her spells of deception. Any equipment she wears or carries is invisible with her. Oh, that's actually nice, because so if she turns invisible as an action before the combat starts, she can then get her first attack off at advantage, even if her sneak attack doesn't go off, even if her rend, for example, doesn't end up going off to get her a sneak attack. That's actually nice. And then spells of deception. So this is available to her either in beast form or humanoid form. Cothlin targets one humanoid or beast that she can see within 30 feet of her. The target gains 2 shadow points from sorcery, resisted by a DC 16 int save. On a failed save, the target is charmed by Cothlin until the end of her next turn. So for those of you who aren't aware of what I mean by shadow points, so in Lord of the Rings 5e, we have this amazing shadow point system. It is way better than any flaw system that you do in D&D 5e. So the way it works is there is a variety of things working against the player heroes in Middle-earth that's causing them grief and sadness and madness and greed, sorcery, treachery, all sorts of things that work against the player heroes to weigh on their heart, their mind, and their spirit. And as these things weigh on the player heroes, some of these make them make saving throws, so some of it's charisma saves or int saves or wisdom saves. But in all cases, if they failed those saving throws, they gain what's called shadow points. And shadow points accumulate. And the way it works is when you reach a number of shadow points equal to half of what your wisdom score is. So let's say that we're playing a low wisdom character with only a 10 in wisdom. So if you reach 5 shadow points, you now gain a new condition in Lord of the Rings 5e, and this condition affects you mechanically. As you continue to gain more shadow points, once you reach 10 shadow points, or the number of shadow points equal to your wisdom score, you gain a second new condition. So off the top of my head, I know one's called miserable. The other one, I can't remember off the top of my head right this second, but I can go through it with you guys. So you gain a second condition, and then what happens is you need to now undergo a bout of madness to reset those shadow points. And this is usually the players making decisions that are against either against the party or works against what they're trying to do, or sets the party back in some way. So, for example, when Boromir has a bout of madness, he tries to take the ring from Frodo. That is not what Boromir would have done if he was in his right mind, but it is what this bout of madness drove him to do. And then after this bout of madness, Boromir, had a moment of clarity. His shadow points, as it were, reset. But the way this works in the system, so each calling that you select in Lord of the Rings 5e, so there's six callings, or class equivalents, I should say, and each calling has a shadow path. And those shadow paths are how you can fall under the influence of the shadow. For example, Treasure Hunter, which is akin to a rogue type character, has a shadow path of dragon sickness. So the lure and greed can draw them towards the shadow. That is how they can fall under the influence of Sauron and find themselves succumbing to evil ways. So each shadow path has specifics on how you can descend down your shadow path. So there's 4 different levels for each shadow path. And each one gets more and more and more dark and more works against the players more actively. A lot of these are role-play based stuff, but that isn't to say that they don't have consequences in game, because some of these lead to mistrust of their fellow party members, acting against the wishes of the party, doing selfish deeds, withholding information, enforcing their power. There's so much that's involved in this, that the player heroes, they can lean into from a roleplay aspect, but as a lore master, you can enforce some of this stuff, because they are not in their right minds, and as they descend down these shadow paths, it becomes more apparent. Now, you may be wondering, what happens when you get to the end of these 4 different shadow paths, or these 4 levels of your shadow path. So if you descend to the bottom of your shadow path, and you succumb to the shadow, one of 2, possibly 3 things might happen. If you are an elf, you can choose to depart for the Undying Lands. Like Elrond's wife, who was overcome with grief, and her mind was clouded with shadow. She departed for the Undying Lands for that healing of the Valar. Like her, as an elf, you can choose to depart for the Undying Lands. If you are not an elf, though, you may either choose to succumb to the shadow, which may lead to evil deeds, potential for your character to become a new BBEG. That is at least how I would run it if I were a lore master. I would 100% allow a player hero to fade off into the distance and return later as an NPC, but on the side of evil now. But by the book standards, usually what happens is you draw into seclusion, you become distrusting of everyone, and eventually, in your isolation, you are either captured and sentenced to death by folks of good alignment, or you starve to death or die or lead yourself to your own demise, like how Smeagol leads himself to his own demise, going after the ring with Frodo. So there's a few different things that might happen, but all of them, typically by the book standards, leads ultimately to you dying because of your corruption from the shadow. I like the way that the shadow system works in Lord of the Rings 5e. I think is definitely more impactful than the flaws system from D&D 5e. So if you guys are interested in it, like I said, pick up Lord of the Rings 5e by Free League Publishing. It is currently available right now on D&D Beyond, which is how a few people are now discovering this lovely system. So if you're interested, if you want to pick it up on D&D Beyond, feel free. If you want to pick it up on Free League Publishing's website, that does give you access to both the physical copy of the book and the PDF version. So weigh your choices there. All right. So that is her actions. Now she does have a reaction called Redirect Attack. If a creature charmed by Cawthon hits with an attack roll while within 60 feet of her, Cawthon chooses another creature she can see within 5 feet of the target. The chosen creature becomes the target instead. So with her spell of Deception, if they fail that DC 16 int save and become charmed by her, she can now modify who they attack, which is kind of sneaky because when you first introduce this to the players and they're told that they're charmed, okay, they're just going to target, some other creatures in the area. But Cawthon uses that against them to have them get up close with their fellow player heroes. And before they even realize what they're doing, they are taking that attack at their fellow comrades. All right. I need a drink. Okay, so let's actually calculate out how this actually ends up being for a CR8, because we have noticed in some of the previous stat blocks that some of them do not meet their actual challenge rating. So let's do some math here and figure out if this is indeed an actual CR8 as advertised. So I'm going to open up my little CR calculator here. So we expect her to be a CR8. Hit points, she has 97. So she's got 13 D8 and a constitution of 16. AC, she's got a 19. And let's see. So her main source of damage is actually by attacks. So she's got some +7s and a +9 to hit. We'll say it's going to be +7. I might change that to +8 depending on how everything looks, but we'll say +7 for now. She's got no vulnerabilities. She does have a little bit of immunities, but they're kind of half immunities because it's not, because it's just from non-magical weapons. So I'm going to just mark her as resistances. Save proficiencies, she actually has none, which is interesting. She cannot fly. Let's see. So we've got So let's take a peek at our monster features here. So Immortal Spirit doesn't really make a difference. Shape Changer doesn't really make a difference. Sneak Attack we'll calculate out later. Let's see. It's really that Spell of Deception. Let's see. Do we have anything about Charmed? I'm not seeing anything. Oh, Superior Invisibility. Can turn invisible as an action or bonus action. That's important. All right. Okay. I mean, it's only for one round anyway, so maybe it doesn't really make a difference. All right. So let's calculate out her best option when it comes to attacking. So let's see. Her Ren does 10, 20 damage. Her Great Bow does 13, 26 damage. Great Spear does 24 damage. So we'll say the Great Bow. We'll say she does the Great Bow for 26 damage, plus the extra 3d6, so 36 damage per round. All right. Let's take a peek here. Let's just compare some of her features. So an AC of 19 is quite high for a CR8. Usually a CR8 has an AC of 16 on average. Her hit points, though, are where her defensive CR makes up for that. So her hit points are only 97, which is more like a CR2 range. And for a CR8, usually we see between 176 to 190 hit points for a CR8. So they increased her AC but bumped down her hit points. And that with her invisibility bumps up her effective AC to 21 and her effective HP to 145, which ends up making her defensive CR right in that CR8 range. So that's perfectly all right. Now, the offensive CR is where she seems to be lacking. So she does have a +7 to hit, which is appropriate for a CR8. But usually a CR8 is doing between 51 to 56 damage per round. And she is not doing that. She's doing 36 damage per round. Let's see. I'm just wondering if the easiest way to do this is to, it's probably going to be to increase her multi-attack from 2 to 3 attacks. But let's take a peek here. So if I did another, what was it? It was 13 damage. That would put us at 49. So let's say we do 3 attacks. That does 49. That bumps her up to an offensive CR of 7 by increasing her multi-attack from 2 to 3. So if I were running her, I would definitely make that change. You could even probably bump up her sneak attack from 3d6 to 4d6. She won't always get off her sneak attack, but she has a pretty good chance of getting it off with her rend and with her invisibility. Now I'm curious, because she does do poison damage, so I'm curious to see if some of the future stat blocks that get paired with her have stuff that works with poison damage. So we will see how that ends up playing out here. All right. Okay, I need some more coffee. All right. Dagger. Dagger. The Shadow of Death. Uncounted centuries ago, the great enemy bred monstrous birds in the rookeries of Angband. Created in mockery of the great eagles, these gigantic birds of prey possessed wide wings, sharp talons, and serrated beaks. Their black feathers were as hard as iron, sending sparks flying when their wings scraped against each other, enabling them to set entire forests ablaze. They could not emit a sound. Legend says Morgoth struck them dumb when he grew weary of their screeching voices. Ooh. So they're basically giant ravens. The greatest calamity among such monsters was recently summoned from the north by the necromancer, and she has been promised an eyrie of her own among the peaks of the Hithaglir. Dagger is her name, and she is under the command of Cothlin. The creature only half believes the lies of Sauron, but the weasel spirit's plan intrigues her. Still, she remains primarily concerned about her own survival and will quickly abandon and betray Cothlin should she fear for her life. Dagger is an old but powerful monster. She flies only for short stretches, preferring to stop on hilltops or large treetops while fanning the flames ignited by her own sparks with her great wings. If seriously wounded, she will summon her remaining strength to soar above her enemies and escape. Alright, so she is actually a huge monstrosity, so that's actually kind of cool. This is the first huge creature we've seen thus far in this book. So she has an intelligence of 6 and a charisma of 9, which makes sense for a bestial creature. She's got a dex score of 10 and a wisdom of 12, con of 18, but her strength is where she shines at a 21. She's got natural armor with an AC of 15 and 168 hit points. She's got a 20-foot walk speed and 120-foot fly speed. She is proficient in con saves with a +7, and her perception is a +4. She's got dark vision out to 120 feet, and understands black speech, but can't speak. And she's a CR7. So like a typical bird stat block, Dagger has advantage on perception checks that rely on sight or smell. And she has multi-attack, so she makes 2 attacks, one with her beak and one with her talons. Her beak is a reach of 5 with a +8 to hit for 3d8 +5 piercing damage. And her talons have a reach of 10 feet with a +8 to hit for 3d6 +5 slashing damage, and the target is grappled, escape DC 16. Until this grapple ends, the target is restrained, and Dagger can't use its talons on another target. So she goes in, she hits you with her talons, grapples and restrains you, and then she makes her next attacks, her beak attack at advantage. And as long as you're in her talons, she's just consistently making that beak attack at advantage. It's actually funny because the talons do less damage than the beak. So really, like, getting rid of the talon attack doesn't make a difference in her damage per round. Actually, in some ways, helps her damage per round. Interesting. Oh, she's a vulture, not a raven. That's cool, though. Dagger. Again, beautiful artwork, like always. All right, Eladane and Elrohir. The twin sons of Elrond share command of the elf wardens of Imladris, following the death of their former captain, Arothir, who was killed by Cauthlan. In this position, they frequently venture abroad to hunt orcs and other other fell creatures, or to lead scouting expeditions and diplomatic embassies. While they respect the orders of their father Elrond and those of Glorfindel, the lieutenant and herald of Rivendell, they are far more eager to engage in the affairs of the world than the older elves of the Vale. See page 39 on further details of Eladane and Elrohir. So we did cover their stat blocks in a previous stream. All right, and then we've got actually a friendly stat block, Glinil, the Slayer. When Glinil was young, oh, it's a woman. Okay, I misgendered her. When Glinil was young, she played in Imladris with the sons of Elrond, riding and hunting among the hills. Like Eladane and Elrohir, she became an elf warden, one of unparalleled skill. Then there came a dark time when the enemy drew closer to Imladris, and Cauthlan began to stalk the dells, picking off Glinil's companions one by one. On a fateful day, she witnessed the Weasel Lady strike her mentor, Arothir, the brother of Damron the smith, with a red-feathered arrow. At that moment, something broke within the elf maiden, and she swore that Cauthlan would never harm those she loved again. Ooh, that's cool. I love that vengeance arc. At long last, Eladane and Elrohir trapped Cauthlan, but it was Glinil who delivered the killing blow with Methacharn, a black blade forged by Damron the smith, specifically for that purpose. The dagger fed on her hatred, leaving Glinil empty afterwards, as if something essential had gone out of her forever. Such was the price of wielding Methacharn. That's cool. Glinil is now stern and grim, rarely staying among other elves. Instead, she prefers to wander the land alone or with a few companions, hunting fell beasts and dark creatures. In her mind, there is only the shadow and the need to keep Imladris secret and safe. Alright, so she's obviously a medium humanoid. Occupation warden, described as stern and wary. Her charisma score suffered a great loss probably when she wielded Methacharn, because she's only got an 8. She's got an int score of 11, con of 14, strength of 13, wisdom of 16, and then her highest score is dex with an 18. She wears a leather corselet for an AC of 16 and has 78 hit points and a speed of 40 feet. She's proficient in strength and con saves and actually charisma saves. And then for skill, she's got a +3 to athletics, +5 to explore. That's the skill I forgot, explore. +7 to hunting, +2 to nature, +7 in perception, +6 to stealth, and +7 in travel. Her passive perception is 17. She speaks Quenya, Sindarin, and Western, and she is a CR4. Alright, let's take a peek at her stat block. Alright, against the unseen, Glynnel has advantage on charisma saving throws and cannot be frightened by undead creatures. Skill of the Eldar, twice per day. If Glynnel fails an ability check that lets her add her proficiency bonus, she can choose to obtain a magical success instead. In addition, whenever she succeeds on an ability check that lets her add her proficiency bonus, she can treat the result as a magical success. So magical successes in Lord of the Rings 5e, it's essentially like your nat 20, but a little more. What magical success means is you're able to do things that shouldn't be possible. So it is, a nat 20. It is that wow factor of rolling a 20, but it's a little bit more than just rolling a nat 20. It is being able to do things that shouldn't be possible. So Glynnel has multi-attack, so she takes 2 attacks. She's got a magic sword, which is a reach of 5 feet with a +7 to hit, which is kind of high for a CR4. She does 1d6 +4 slashing damage, or 1d8 +4 if using 2 hands. And then she's got a great bow as her ranged weapon, +6 to hit, short range of 150 feet, long range of 600 feet, and she does 1d8 +3 piercing damage with that. She does have a parry reaction, so she can add 2 to her AC against 1 melee attack that would hit her, and to do so, she must see the attacker and be wielding a melee weapon. I'm already thinking that this is not reaching a CR4, but let's do the calculations to see if that is the case. All right, so let's do this. So we've got expected CR of 4. Her hit dice is 12d8 with a constitution of 14. Which puts her at 78 hit points. Her AC is 16. She uses attacks to hit. We'll say that she's a +7 to hit. That's perfectly fine. She doesn't have any resistances or immunities, but she is proficient in 3 saving throws, so we will mark 3 save proficiencies. She does not fly, and she doesn't have any vulnerabilities. She doesn't use any saves. Her against the unseen and skills of the Eldar really don't make a difference in her CR. So let's take a peek at her her thing here. So she's got parry. So we will add that in. For her damage per round, let's say she does her magic sword. We'll say she uses 2 hands. So that is 8, 16 damage. $16 per round. Oh, actually, that's not as bad as I thought. So typically for a CR4, they typically have an AC of 14. So she's got a slightly upped AC with a 16. And their hit points are usually between 116 to 130. So again, they sacrifice some hit points to up her AC a little bit. That with her parry does give her an effective AC of 19 with a which puts her defensive CR at CR4, which is perfectly fine. So her attacks, typically they have a +5 to hit for a CR4, but they usually do between 27 to 32 damage per round. Now I only have her putting 16 damage per round, but with that +7 to hit, it does say that her offensive CR is CR4, which I'm surprised about. Now I'm kind of curious if I bumped up her damage per round, if that would, at what point does she not become a CR4? So 24 is still within the realm. Let's say 30. Okay, so 30 is too much. Let's try 26. Okay, so we can bump it up to 26 damage per round and still have her meet the criteria for CR4. So right now she does 16 damage, 16 damage per round. Easiest way, bump her up to 3 attacks per round. You could also just give her some extra damage die on these. Instead of 1d8, make it 2d8, something like that. All right. So those are our stat blocks. All in all, not too bad, all things considered. Let's go into the Dark Schemes of Cothlin. So the way this works is every time we have kind of these are more plots that your lore master can use. And every time every time the books introduce some of these plots for us, what they do is they give us a timeline. And these timelines outline some of the history of stuff that is relevant to this plot for us, but it also gives some future stuff that can occur later on in the story. So for those of you that aren't aware, most of the time in Lord of the Rings 5e, we are set in the year 2965 of the Third Age, approximately 20 years after Bilbo Baggins returns from the Lonely Mountain. So this is before the events of the Fellowship of the Ring, but after the events of The Hobbit. So we're in this nice little sweet spot where Sauron is returning to Middle-earth. He is planning his uprising. He is scheming. Things are unfolding in the story, but we are not yet at the point where we go against the stuff that is occurring in Lord of the Rings, or working alongside the stuff that's happening in Lord of the Rings. So let's take a peek at these timelines. Cautlin has a long history with Rivendell. Though she has served different masters at various times, her hatred for the elves of Imladris has become deeply personal, prompting her to act with independence and initiative against them. Below are some relevant past events, along with potential developments that might arise if Cautlin successfully carries out her dark schemes. The lore master can incorporate the player heroes into any of the described episodes, or make them the protagonists of the narrative, with some examples provided in the text. All right, I need to drink first. By the way, if you guys are liking this stuff, please follow, share, subscribe on Twitch, YouTube, or TikTok to continue to support me as I venture forth in these streaming adventures. So the year 1356 of the Third Age, Rivendell besieged. The forces of Angmar and Rudar close in on Rivendell. Cautlin first appears. 1401, Arthur's demise. Arthur, Damron's brother and Glinel's mentor, is killed by a poisoned arrow shot by Cautlin. Shortly after, the weasel spirit is slain by Eladane, Elrohir, and Glinel. The encirclement of Rivendell is broken, and as the elves of Rivendell and Lindon ride against their foes and drive them out of Rudar. Jumping forward 1100 years, Celebrane's ordeal. Celebrane is waylaid and captured by orcs before her sons free her. She departs Middle-earth the following year, seeking healing in Aman. 2965, the return of the weasel spirit. So this is the year that most of your campaigns in Lord of the Rings 5e will start, is 2965. Dark things multiply on the outskirts of Rivendell, with wolves roaming the dells in autumn and spring. Several elf wardens fall victim to strange accidents, while others report sightings of a red-furred weasel watching them, fueling rumors that the spirit Cautlin has returned. During this time, the elf wardens guarding Imladris become more hostile than usual towards strangers found near Rivendell, driven by fear that Cautlin may disguise herself among them. 2966, the Siege of Wailing Hole. In early summer, Glinel leads a party of elf wardens north into the Coldfells to investigate a ruined hill fort recently occupied by marauding orcs. They are ambushed and retreat to the hill of Ilek, where they find themselves besieged. See the Wailing Hole. We have an entire location dedicated to this. By a force led by an elf woman in red armed with a bow, Cautlin has indeed returned to threaten Rivendell. Upon her return to Imladris, Glinel secretly asks Damron to forge a new methacharn, but the smith refuses. So this is Damron, which is the elven smith that made the weapon against the Weasel Lady. 2970, the Waylaying of the Even Star. Arwen travels from Lothlorien to Rivendell with a large escort led by her brothers Eladane and Elrohir. If the company's patron is Elrond, the player heroes are asked to join. Along their journey, a heavy fog envelops the company, and a shadow of terror falls upon the steeds, scattering the riders. As Arwen seeks protection, someone in the guise of Eladane approaches her. However, Elrohir, or a player hero, recognizes the deception and drives the impostor off. Later, a poisoned arrow strikes Arwen's horse, which dies shortly after. The company hastens towards Rivendell. The impostor and the archer are identified as Cothlin. Elrond's sons, along with Glynnel, ask for scouting parties to scour the mountains and hunt her down, but Elrond forbids it. 2971. A trap is triggered. Another group of elf wardens is found dead, prompting Eladane, Elrohir, and Glynnel to defy Elrond's command and leave Rivendell in pursuit of Cothlin. Following her trail into the mountains, they reach a remote valley where they are ambushed by orcs. In the ensuing battle, Glynnel is slain and Elrohir is wounded. Oh no, Glynnel dies. 2972. No place is safe anymore. If Cothlin has so far managed to sulk freely around Rivendell, she accomplishes the unthinkable by discovering the location of the last homely house and finding a way inside through the secret path at Glauria. See the Vineyards of Glauria. On a moonless night, she descends the mountainside in weasel form. The player heroes in Rivendell may have a chance to discover her. Otherwise, talon marks are later found on the window of Arwen's room. The elves intensify their hunt for Cothlin to prevent her from revealing Rivendell's location. However, she deliberately delays reporting to Sauron, driven by a desire to pursue her own personal vengeance. So they talk a little bit in this book in the core rules about how the playing out of this story lines up with the actual events in Tolkien's work, and how to reconcile what's happening with the player hero's story and the events in Tolkien's world. There's a few different things that they suggest for it. One of the things that they suggest is something like, consider the events of the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit and all that stuff, not as, factual context, but as perceived events, personal witness accounts of folks who are prone to misinterpreting things or embellishing things. There's also stuff that is occurring at the same time as the events of this this book. And as a lore master, you might be like, hey, what happens if Cothlin gets away? Is she going to report to Sauron? Does that change things in the game? Maybe something happens to Cothlin along the way on her report to Sauron. Or maybe she reports to Sauron and he doesn't actually pay any heed to it. There's a lot of stuff that can occur behind the scenes that helps us stay true to Tolkien's work. All right. 2973, The Coming of the Shadow of Death. Summoned by Sauron, Dagur leaves her eyrie in the frozen north and slowly reaches the peaks above the high pass. (2973), so same year. Confrontation at the Black Lake. Having found tracks indicating Cothlin's recent passage, Eladane and Elrohir, acting against their father's orders, set out to hunt her. They ask the player heroes to join them in their rebellion. They trace the trail of the weasel spirit high in the mountains at the Black Lake, where they are ambushed by Dagur. the elves of Rivendell suffer a terrible defeat. Damron begins to forge a new Methacharn. 2974. The Forging of the Black Blade. Damron completes the forging of Methacharn and discreetly asks one of the player heroes to wield it, as the sons of Elrond won't defy their father's orders. Meanwhile, Cauthlan calls Dagur down the mountains to devastate the upper vales of Brunnen. The woods on the slopes of the mountain are all kindled, and high columns of smoke rise into the sky, marking the slow advance of the great monster. Elrond assembles a group of heroes to slay the monster. As they approach the creature, waiting for them on a naked hill rising at the bottom of a deep valley, they remain unaware that Cauthlan is hidden nearby, poised to pick them off one by one with her red-feathered arrows. Alright. The Last Resort. If Cauthlan and Dagur seem poised to achieve a definitive victory, Elrond Half-Elven resorts to a desperate measure, wielding the power of Vilya, the mightiest of the three. He summons a great wind and commands the river to rise in fury. A raging storm unleashes waves of water, wood, and stones, sweeping through the valley and washing away the monster and everything else in its path. Unfortunately, such a formidable display of power is likely to signal the ring's presence to the servants of the Dark Lord, for his spies are many. The Blade Methacharn. This short sword was forged by Damron, the smith of Imladris, as a tool to exact vengeance on the killing of Erothir, his brother. The smith forged it using iron that fell from heaven as a blazing star, and employing knowledge he once gained from the Lord of Gifts himself long ago in Eregion. This is important because he is not using elven craftsmanship to forge this blade. He is using dark craftsmanship from Sauron himself. The virtue of Methacharn lies in its ability to sever the spirit of a living creature from its flesh so profoundly that it would take at least 1,000 years for the spirit to find a new body. However, this power comes at a great cost, as the blade feeds on anger and hatred, leaving deep scars on the wielder's spirit. Methacharn is a short sword of Elven craftsmanship, whose only bane is Cauthlan. It has the superior fell, superior keen, and foe-slaying enchanted rewards. However, every time its damage reduces a creature to 0 hit points, it is considered a misdeed worth 4 shadow points for the wielder. DC 15 wisdom save. If the blade is used to slay Cauthlan, it melts and the wielder additionally gains 1 shadow scar. So shadow scars are like permanent shadow points. You don't get rid of them with a Bow of Madness. The only time you can get rid of them is during a very specific fellowship phase during Yule, where you can spend your undertaking removing shadow scars. So that occurs once per year, where you can attend Yule. The first Methacharn was forged 1,000 years ago, and Glinel used it to slay Cauthlan. The blade melted after inflicting the deadly wound, and Elrond forbade Damron from forging another under the threat of exile. Yet, Damron might still consider the demise of the Weasel Lady worth the sacrifice. However, neither Eladane nor Elrohir will defy their father and wield the blade, and Glinel refuses to endure that sacrifice again. So, who will dare to use the Black Blade? It's going to be your player heroes. Alright, so that is the end of this second plot of Sauron to undermine the power of the elves. I think that it is less powerful than, or maybe not less powerful, but there's definitely a lot less going on in this particular plot of Sauron than we saw in Perils of the Last Road. Perils of the Last Road, we had a bit more stat blocks available to us. There was a bit more locations available. But that isn't to say that Memories of Ancient Wounds isn't a worthy plot to follow as a lore master. I think that it is perfectly all right. What do you guys think about it? I think I like it. I think I would lean more towards Perils of the Last Road than I would Memories of Ancient Wounds, but I like the stuff happening in Memories of Ancient Wounds, and I think that there's a lot to work with there if your players are spending time in Rivendell. If you're spending time in Rivendell, I think that it is a wonderful plot to introduce to your players, especially as the timeline's going on and they find themselves, going to this place where no place is safe anymore. Really, most people aren't going to be leaving Rivendell, and that lack of discussion or communication with the outlying or with the other elven realms is going to flag something for your player heroes, because maybe Serdane or Galadriel or Celeborn says, we haven't heard from Elrond in a long time. We haven't seen people traveling from Rivendell in a while. You guys should figure out what's going on. So that gives your player heroes an incentive to go to Rivendell if they haven't already. All right. So we have been streaming for about an hour and a half here. I'm going to actually switch gears here. We will, in my next stream, be covering the third and final plot of Sauron, called Old Hatreds May Still Breed War. And this particular section, let me just get the summary here, because we did have a little summary of the various plots. So this one, let's see, where is it here? It's a scheme to incite strife between the elves of Lindon and their neighbors, the dwarves, orchestrated through the manipulations of the resentful elf Arblod. So we will be covering that in my next stream. Today is Thursday, however, so my next stream will be likely Tuesday. However, if you guys have not already followed the Kindly Cleric, and I will be doing something new called, or I guess new to my channel, called Middle-earth Mondays, the Kindly Cleric. So if you don't follow the Kindly Cleric already, please follow him. He is a wonderful streamer and a wonderful dungeon master. But I will be doing something called Middle-earth Mondays with him every Monday morning going forward, probably until I return to work from my maternity leave. So if you do not follow him already, he is available on YouTube and Twitch. He also has a TikTok account. I do not know it off the top of my head, but it is probably the Kindly Cleric, all one word. So we will be doing that probably come Monday, as long as everything goes off without a hitch. and then I will be returning to streaming by my lonesome on Tuesday next week. So I appreciate everyone who has stopped by the stream today. I do want to take a moment to address couple other things. So in the near future here, I will be able to play in a Lord of the Rings 5e campaign. And it was actually a campaign, or it is a campaign, that's actually being DM'd by the Kindly Cleric. And the Kindly Cleric is running a Moria campaign through the Long Dark. Now, I'm not sure, we did discuss a potential for me and him to potentially stream it. That will obviously depend on the comfort levels of the other players involved in that campaign, as to whether or not we will be able to stream it. But if we do decide to stream it, I hope that you guys will be able to join us. I am building a wonderful dwarven character for this campaign. Her name is Tora, and Tora is a daughter of Torbera Thundershield, and Torbera fought in the battle of Azanulbizar, and there's just a lot of cool things that I'm doing with her lineage. Now, as we know, there isn't a whole lot of female dwarves in Tolkien to go by. There's actually only one female dwarf in Tolkien's work, Dís. And the only reason we know about Dís is because she is the mother to Fili and Kili, the sister to Thorin Oakenshield. And so that's the only reason that we even know anything about Dís, a female dwarf. But otherwise, there is not really a reference to any female dwarves. Even when we go into the Seven Fathers of the dwarves, there's no reference to who their wives were. Were they the daughters of the other dwarf lords? And if so, like, how did this work? So there's a bunch of questions left unanswered when it comes to female dwarves. There's been some discussion about, obviously, beards on dwarves, whether or not beards are a thing on female dwarves or not. I know that a lot of people, or I should say a portion of people, feel strongly that female dwarves should be bearded. I have always taken it as kind of a over, maybe a bit of a dramatic text when they talk about female dwarves being bearded. I don't think that most female dwarves were bearded. I think that at most they might have had like fine facial hair, but being a woman myself, I know that there are hormonal changes that can cause you to have a bit of a darker or thicker facial hair makeup. I don't really think that female dwarves would have been capable of growing a full lustrous beard like how male dwarves have it. And in Tolkien's work, when he references creatures with beards, he only mentions dwarf males. He doesn't mention dwarf females. So that's something to think about too when it comes to your perception of female dwarves. But in any case, this female dwarf that I'm playing will not have a beard. At most, she's going to have like maybe fine stubble or something like that. But she is not going to be, a big comical bearded dwarf, because I find that's detracts from the character. But what she is going to be is she is going to be a daughter of someone who you may or may not be familiar with, from a inspired, a token-inspired work by Amazon called Rings of Power. Now, I realize that some people do not like the Rings of Power. I actually really enjoyed Rings of Power. I thought that it breathed a lot of life into the Tolkien universe and highlighted some stuff from Tolkien that has not otherwise been addressed in the Peter Jackson series or other Tolkien media. So I appreciated Rings of Power, but in Rings of Power, we actually see a female dwarf introduced named Disa. And Disa is a powerful female dwarf. She's actually something called a stone singer in the series, where she actually sings to the Mountain in order to tell where they should dig. And it really highlights a spirituality between dwarves and the mountain that they inhabit. And I've really just enjoyed her character. She's a very powerful woman, a very wise woman, and not afraid to tell the king or tell her husband, tell her father-in-law, tell her husband when they're being silly, when they need to smarten up and just do what's best for their people or do what's best for the greater good. So my character is actually going to be a descendant of Disa. That isn't to say that she's, an heir of Durin or from the line of Durin. That's not really the approach I wanted to go with her. I really wanted to more highlight that there are powerful female dwarves in her line. And in the Rings of Power, there is a dwarf child from Durin the Fourth and Disa named Gerda. So there's Gerda and I think I have the boy's name here. So Disa and Durin the Fourth had two children in the Rings of Power series that we know of, Gerda and Gamli. And we can presume that eventually they're going to have a third child named Durin the Fifth. But Gerda is a female dwarf, another female dwarf. And the way I've been setting up this backstory for my character is that there's the descendants of Disa, which proceeded through from Disa to Gerda, and ever thereafterwards, every female child bore a daughter, and that daughter had the striking amber eyes of Disa, and so it continues such and so forth. I got down to 2590 of the Third Age, when Gror led a portion of Durin's folk from the Grey Mountains following the War of Dwarves and Dragons, and departed for the Iron Hills. At that point, there was a little girl of only 8 years old named Hala, and Hala departed with her parents and her kinsfolk for the Iron Hills, where they now made a life for themselves. In 2670, Hala birthed Thel, and in 2759, Thel birthed Torbera, and in 2799 of the Third Age, at the young age of 40, Torbera gained the name Thunder Shield when she fought at the Battle of Azanulbizar. beside her kinsfolk, outside the Mines of Moria, outside Khazad Dûm. And the Battle of Azanul-Bizar is a very notable battle between the dwarves and the orcs. This is where Azog, the orc chieftain, was slain by Dain. And Dain is the same Dain from The Hobbit, from the Battle of Five Armies, who led his folk from the Iron Hills to the aid of Thorin Oakenshield. But Dain was very young at the time. He was, I think, 30 at the time of the Battle of Azanul-Bizar. And to give you guys a perspective, 30 years old in dwarf years is about the same as 14 years old in human years. It just means that he was tall enough and strong enough to wear armor and hold a weapon. He was not, mentally or emotionally mature enough to be involved in a war, but he was physically capable of holding a weapon and wearing armor, and so he was thrown into the war. So at the young age of 30-some, Dain fought in this battle outside of the Mines of Moria, and what happened was his father was slain by Azog, and Dain saw this and immediately decapitated Azog. So unlike the Peter Jackson films, Azog does not continue to, doesn't continue life after this. Azog is slain by Dain. And Dain, after this battle, there were countless dwarf casualties. Like, this was a horrible blow to the dwarves. And at this point, Dain looked through the doors of Durin, and he had the wisdom to perceive there's still evil that resides in the Mines of Moria. We shouldn't enter now. And so Dain, now becoming the Lord of the Iron Hills, leads his people back to the Iron Hills. And then the other folk, the other Durin's folk, leave for the Blue Mountains, where they reside for a while. And so in this great battle, I have my character's mother involved in this battle. She's only about 40, which is kind of the age where they become about 18 years old, the equivalent of 18 years old in dwarf years. So it's the age of what is it called? Not age of maturity, but the coming of age, I guess, for your dwarves is about 40 years old. So Torbera was not an old dwarf. She wasn't a seasoned dwarf, but she held her own in the battle and led her or followed her people back with Dain to the Iron Hills. And then I have in 2880, my character Tora was born to Torbera. So it's a cool little timeline that I'm working on here. I will be, fleshing out a little bit of the ways that my character's ancestors have been involved in Dwarven history, whether they were witnesses to things or involved in them. Torbera obviously earned a name for herself. She is Thundershield, which I thought is kind of a cool nickname. And that's actually the meaning behind the name, Torbera. So I'm actually really excited to flesh out a little bit more of this stuff. Now, my character is only going to be about 85 years old at the time that we are starting our Moria campaign. So she is by no means a brand new, fresh dwarf, but she's starting to become a bit more mature, a bit more wise, and is confident enough to strike out on her own. And then hopefully, as her story progresses, we see some character developments for her. Now, she is going to be as I said, a dwarf of the Iron Hills. And she is a descendant of Durin, Durin's folk. But she, for her calling, she's actually going to be what's called a captain in the Lord of the Rings 5e system. And so captains in Lord of the Rings 5e are very similar to paladins. They have an aura. They aid and buff their allies with this aura. And they have a fighting style. I think that when I get to the level that she picks her fighting style, I think I'm going to make her a protective fighting or protection fighting style, because she will have her shield, she will have her axe. So I think I'm going to make her give her the protection fighting style so that she's protective over those in her care. Because captains are kind of, they take on a leadership type quality, and they actually have one of their first features in Lord of the Rings 5e is something called leadership, which works very, very, very similarly to Inspiring Leader from D&D 5e. So she's going to be a more leadership based character. I'm hoping that I'll be able to do her justice. In my head, I have this great intent for her, this great vision for her. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to bring it to life with my role playing during the course of the campaign. With any luck, here's hoping. But I'm really looking forward to it. We did have our session 0 this past Monday. And it went really, really good. Right now we have 5 players in the party. So we've got 2 hobbits, an elf, and a ranger of the north. Hey dear, how's it going? Pretty good. Piercy, how's it going with you? So we do have a few different characters. I think we've got a messenger, a scholar, a treasure hunter, and then I'm trying to remember what the other one is. Oh, a warden. So we've got the Ranger of the North is the warden, so very Aragorn type thing. We've got our elf scholar, Elf of Lindon scholar, and then we have our a hobbit treasure hunter and a hobbit messenger. So between the two of them, we've got our hobbits covered. So I'm actually the only dwarf in this party, which is kind of exciting, kind of nerve-wracking, because it's really, really putting pressure on me to know my stuff when it comes to the Mines of Moria. I wouldn't say that I am a Tolkien scholar by any sense of the word. I'm a Tolkien enthusiast. I have learned a little bit more about Tolkien since I started streaming here. So I do know a little bit more than I used to. I'm really excited, really nervous. And the interesting thing about Mines of Moria, about the Moria campaign setting, which is a book available from Free League Publishing. They did release it, I want to say August of 2024. So it's still a pretty fresh setting. So with the Shadow of Khazad-dûm, I think it's called Moria Shadow of Khazad-dûm, actually, is the name of the Lord of the Rings 5e book. But in that book, we actually have dwarf madness. So as a dwarf character, seeing the horrible state of Moria can lead you to descend down something very similar to a shadow path. And you can actually choose to replace your shadow path with the Moria madness if you're a dwarf character. And essentially it's as you descend down this, you start to see Moria not as this shadowy place like it currently is, but you get to see it as how it used to be, and you become a little bit deluded and disillusioned to the actual state of how things are. And it's really cool as a dwarf character to be able to see that play out, to be able to see the dwarves. It's really hard for a dwarf to come back to this sacred place, to come back to Khazad-dûm and see it in ruin and darkness and shadow and evil. And that sorrow and that longing for the place that once was, to see a place of such glory fall down to that level, is really distressing for the dwarves. And so, of course, they're going to become a bit disillusioned, to imagine things as they used to be, to ignore all of the misery and misfortune that they are seeing play out before their eyes. It's really, really, really great. I'm really excited to play in this campaign. I'm really, really hoping that I can stream it for you guys, because I think that you guys will like it as well. Right now, we just finished our session 0 this past Monday. It is a bi-weekly campaign, so we play every 2 weeks on Monday evenings. So with any luck, hopefully in the near future, I will be able to announce to you guys if we will be able to stream that one. Like I said before, I am not the lore master of this one. I am a player. So it will depend entirely on the comfort level of the other players in the party, for us to determine if we are going to stream that live for you guys. Yeah, exciting stuff. All right. Well, I think unless anyone joining via chat would like to ask any questions about Lord of the Rings 5e, I think that I'm going to call the stream here. I really appreciate everyone who has stopped by today. It's been a marvelous day for us. I am now streaming on TikTok, which is a brand new platform for me. I've never streamed on TikTok before. I barely have ever even posted videos to TikTok. So I am trying that out for the first time now. So if you guys like what you're seeing, I am on YouTube, TikTok, and Twitch. If you follow me on Twitch, you do get a chance to make little characters like this little guy that you can see on the bottom of your screens there through the stream avatars column panel. So only followers are able to make them, not just viewers. So if you follow me, it is free, and it allows me to continue to gain support on Twitch, so that I can hopefully make a little bit of money from this stuff. Because right now I do all of this for free in my free time. So if you guys can support me, I would really appreciate it. Follows are appreciated, subscriptions are appreciated, liking is appreciated, but even talking to your friends, sharing this resource with people. I hope to be able to share more about Lord of the Rings 5e with other folk and really give you guys an opportunity to fall in love with the system like I have. I love this system. It is such an improvement to D&D 5e, and it is based in probably one of my favorite settings, in Middle-earth, in Arda, being able to play out this story just like how you would in Tolkien's universe. It is near and dear to my heart. So I really hope to be able to share that with you guys. But in any case, I will be shutting down the stream here so that I can go wake up my baby. But again, I appreciate all of you, and I will see you guys next week for Middle-earth Mondays with the Kindly Cleric. Take care, everyone.